Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to Sikh channel. As you know, this general election started and we are going around the country interviewing various candidates. I'm in Leicester today. I'm talking to Jon Ashworth, who was the MP for Leicester South, and he's now the candidate for Leicester South. We'll talk to him today about the issues which matter before you cast your vote. Jon, welcome to Sikh channel. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to Sikh channel. As I said, since you've been an MP, you won the by-election in 2011.
Yeah, that's right.
And what issues, especially the Sikh issues, you've been dealing with here in Leicester South?
Well, thank you very much, and Sat Shri Akal as well, and thank you for coming to Leicester to talk to me today. We are here in Leicester in the Clarendon Park Gurdwara, a place that I visit very regularly in my Leicester South constituency, or the constituency I'm hoping to be re-elected for. And since my election 4 years ago, I've worked very hard with the Sikh community, along with my good friends in the community like Indrajit Gugnani. We've been working on the issues that the community have raised with me. Whether that's, for example, an issue that's just emerged in the last few weeks, we're going to save, if Labour get in, the Punjabi A-level and qualifications, because I know there's lots of young people in Leicester who study for Punjabi, and the Tories are going to get rid of that A-level. We're going to save it. But I'm also there at Vaisakhi time and other celebrations. Indeed, at Vaisakhi, I go along and I serve langar at the Gurdwara on East Park Road, and I join the procession. And lots of the community seem very pleased when they see me serving langar. So I'm always here working with the community, and it's great to see you today. Well,
you just touched on the education side of issues. I think the language should be preserved. And because language around the world, if one language disappears, and we're just talking in one language, and Punjabi is paramount to learn doing the part in Guru Granth Sahib, if that Punjabi disappears, we will be left with our kids or the future generation without that language. And I'm glad to hear from you that you are fighting to keep the A levels, that qualification, which is the entry to the universities anyway.
Absolutely. I mean, there are a lot in Leicester, a tremendously diverse city, as you know. There are lots of parents from different communities who want their children to learn their mother tongue. I mean, and it's really sad that because of the way the government have changed the exam qualifications, that A-level Punjabi scrapped. There's also GCSE Gujarati going and A-level Bengali. So you can imagine this is a big issue in a city like Leicester. So we've got to fight for it. I come to this Gurdwara regularly. They have Punjabi classes at this Gurdwara, as many Gurdwaras do across the country. So taking away that qualification, I think, it is really devastating for a lot of people. So we've got to fight to keep it.
Well, you think it should be taught in the mainstream schools or even the faith schools, these languages, rather than just in the Gurdwara? Because the resource is always going to be the question, isn't it?
Yeah, well, some of the schools do teach it. Well, they certainly teach Gujarati in after-school classes. Some of the schools in Leicester do. I'll have to double-check about Punjabi. But I think it is important that in cities like Leicester, where there's a very diverse population, that these languages are taught alongside the usual languages, French, German, Spanish, etc. But there's another reason. It's not just about supporting the community. You know, when you look at the way the world is changing in terms of global trade and global economics, we need people who are fluent in languages like Punjabi, Gujarati, Urdu, Bengali, Turkish as well, because that's about trading with nations, and that is the future of the economy.
Right, I mean, those are the issues which in Leicester, I'm sure it is in the other cities as well. But there is a wider picture, especially the National Health Service, right? We've had governments come in and out. Every election, there's always an energy issue. Some governments say we fixed it, and now there's a privatization creeping in. Or they call it outsourcing, right? But that is creeping in. But that should be free at the service, should be delivered free at you enter the hospitals, doctor's surgeries. Why is it that this becomes an issue every time? Why can't we leave it alone?
Well, I think the NHS is the biggest issue in this election campaign. You know, if the Tories get back in, they will really cut back the NHS. I mean, there won't be an NHS. It'll be finished if the Tories get back in. The Labour Party, I'm a Labour candidate, the Labour Party have said we'll invest in the NHS. We'll recruit 20,000 more nurses, we'll recruit 8,000 more doctors. But the other reason why the NHS, particularly A&E, has been in such crisis lately, over 1 million people waiting over 4 hours in A&E last year, is because the Tories have cut the social care budgets. So there may be viewers watching whose mum or father is very elderly, and all the social care provision that the councils have been able to provide has been cut back. And that means increasing numbers of elderly people going into A&E and hospitals, and that's why there's been some of these problems, because those social care budgets have been cut back.
John, you would criticise Tories, understandably, but under Labour, you had those problems as well. You had the waiting list. You had all sorts of crises in national health service. How can you say the doctors? Where are you going to get those 8,000 doctors? We are not creating those doctors here in this country. Where are the nurses coming from? Well, right? There'll be an immigration issue then. We will talk about that afterwards.
Yeah, well, you've got to remember what the NHS was like back in 1997. People were waiting over 18 months for routine operations.
Yeah, I remember that.
So Labour invested huge amounts in NHS and brought those waiting lists down. Those waiting lists are going up again. As I said, 1 million people waited over 4 hours in A&E last year. So the NHS needs this investment that Labour are pledging to put into it. But you're quite right, you can't get doctors and nurses overnight like that. But we've got to get more doctors and nurses in an NHS. And that is the big commitment that Labour's making. Yeah,
but coming back to it, where is the training? Where is these things happening? Because I remember somebody said, well, doctors don't go on trees. I mean, there are people who say all sorts of things. But, you know, you are saying, when you look back into it, it's not just recruiting doctors and nurses. Some of these wards, some of these hospitals are deteriorating.
Yeah.
The machinery is out of date. And the wards, you know, with crawling with all creepy crawlies and all that kind of thing. The investment needs to be in there as well, not just recruiting doctors and nurses.
No, you're quite right. You're absolutely right. I mean, that's why the Labour Party is trying to make the NHS its big priority if we get into government, because you're quite right. It's not just about doctors and nurses. It's about the wards. It's about the equipment. But by the way, the surveys of nurses say that over half of wards are dangerously understaffed, is what nurses are saying. So there is a need there for that extra staffing in our NHS. But you're quite right. You know, we've got to invest in the equipment. We've got to invest in the buildings. Here in Leicester, the A&E at Leicester, the local hospital just down the road from where we're now sat, they've had something called a major incidents. That's when they're in crisis mode 7 times in the last couple of months. So you can see the pressures that they're on the NHS.
Okay, let's move on to the energies.
Yeah.
Energy bills. Your leader, Ed Miliband, said, when we get into government, we'll freeze it for 2 years. Right, where's the investments going to come from? If that is frozen for 2 years, the bills, people are not paying into it, they can't get into the renewable energy, they can't invest because their money is not coming in. After 2 years, the bills will shoot up.
Well, I don't think they will, because the energy companies have really got away with it for too long, I think. What happens is their profits go sky high, yet they never pass on any of those profits to the consumer. The bills keep going up and up and up. In fact, they've gone up by something like £300 under David Cameron's government. So we've said enough is enough. These energy companies are going to have to freeze their bills for 2 years while we change the way the energy market works. Now that might sound quite techie, and lots of viewers might think, well, what on earth does that mean? Well, what it means is we're going to go in there and we're going to have a completely new system when it comes to energy markets. We're going to stop these energy companies ripping off customers. We're going to freeze bills, and then long term we're going to get a better deal. And that not only will be good for your viewers in their homes, it'll also be good, by the way, for Gurdwaras, because this is a very big building. I bet the gas and electric bills, I bet, for this building are pretty high, so it'd be good for Gurdwaras as well.
But there are small companies in there, the energy small company, they'll be squeezed out.
No, I don't.
For competitive purposes, right? You've got the 4 big ones, but there are quite a few small, and there was new starters in the energy, right? But they'll be squeezed out.
Yeah, but we want to encourage more of these small companies. So we want to change the system so these small companies have a role to play, a better role to play. So I understand your concerns, but I think we'll get, because we're going to fix this broken energy market, I think small companies will play a bigger part. And I think that in the long term is much better for the consumer paying the bills.
But the energy companies, the big boys, they're not very happy with this.
No, they're not happy. They're not happy. But I think, that probably shows you how serious we are. British Gas and E.ON and all these guys are not happy with the Labour Party policy on this.
Okay.
Well, that's maybe a good thing.
Right, let's move on to the economy.
Yeah.
Right, with this government, the coalition government, the employment is coming down, and the economy is growing, and the deficit probably is not to the level where it should be. Where your party comes in and they said, well, we will do this into the economy, how can you say when this party have now come to the level where the employment is coming down? Under Labour, the employment was high. Where do you stand on that? How can you say that this government hasn't done enough?
Because people are worse off. People are worse off at the end of this government than they were at the start of this government. In fact, if you look at the statistics and do the numbers, people are worse off by £1,600. So although employment is now better, for a long time unemployment was going up under this government. It's now got better, but people's wages have been squeezed. People are paying a lot more under this government. So even after all the pain, all the cutbacks to public services, all the tax increases like the VAT going up and your national insurance contributions going up, the deficit has only been halved when they promised to get rid of the deficit by this stage, and people are still worse off. So that's why I think the economy is not working the way it should be working. And Ed Miliband says Britain succeeds when working people succeed,
right.
And he's correct. There's something in the economy called productivity. That's about the output per worker. The statistics came out this week. We've got some of the worst productivity levels at the moment that we've ever had, and that's why people are worse off.
Well, under your government, the deficit wasn't, we cut, or it's actually gone up, and the employment had gone up, and under coalition, that has, as I said earlier, that has reversed. But they always blaming the Labour government for the last 5 years, and they're blaming the global crash and the big guys in the banks, getting all these fat bonuses and everything else, right? But realistically, if that was the case, you should be way ahead in polls, but you're not. You were neck and neck.
Well, we are. It is neck and neck. It's a really close election. You're absolutely right. And that's why we in the Labour Party have got to fight really hard. And people have got to realise that if they're worse off, if the NHS is being cut to the bone, if the Tories get back in, public services will see sharper cuts than we've had these last 5 years. VAT will probably go up again. People have got to realise that with it being so close, that's what's at stake in this election.
Yeah, but John, realistically, then shouldn't you be way ahead in polls?
Well, opinion polls come and go, and we'll
usually in this country, opinion polls are near enough correct.
We'll wait and see. I'm only, as a politician, I'm only interested in the poll on election day. We will see. Yeah. But I think your point is, look, if people are not careful, they're going to get the Tories back again. And last night on the television, the Tories refused to rule out a coalition with UKIP. So we could have a Conservative UKIP government. Can you imagine what that would mean for some of the issues that we're concerned about?
Well, you could have Scottish National.
We've ruled out coalition. No, we're not going to have a coalition with the Scots National Party. But look, if they get back in, deeper and sharper cuts to public services, VAT probably going up again. That's what's at stake in this election.
Who will you have a coalition with?
We're going to have a Labour government.
Well, you're hopeful, yeah. But coming back to it, the interest rates are record low, right? And Bank of England governor said you could actually cut it more to maybe zero, right? People have enjoyed that, right?
Yeah.
But if you come in...
Well, that's what pensioners have and savers have, but anyway.
Yeah, well, the savers were not very happy about it. Yes, you're quite right. But if you come in and you probably hike the interest rates up, the taxation, where are you going to get all these money from?
I don't think that's true, because every spending commitment we've made in this election, we are got a way to fund it. So our big commitment on 20,000 nurses and 8,000 doctors is funded by a mansion tax on big houses worth £2 million or more, and by taxing more tobacco companies. There's an example. There is a tax we're going to increase. The millionaires tax, which the Tories reduced from 50p to 45p,
Right, yep.
we're going to put that back up to 50p. So we're not going to go ahead with the corporation tax cut for big business. We're going to use the money by not cutting that tax to cut business rates for small businesses.
Right.
And there'll be lots of businesses in this community in Leicester who will benefit from a cut in business rates. So all our proposals across the board are funded.
Leicester has benefited from the immigration over the years, right? Immigration again is an issue, right? Immigrants coming from various countries. I was listening to the CBI chief, and he was saying there's a skill shortage. To my knowledge, for the past decade, we have had skill shortage. And those vacancies are not filled because of that, right? You get people like the UKIP and all the rest of it up in arms about the immigration. Now, to fill those vacancies, right, immigrants needs to come in from not only from the European, maybe outside Europe. He is now, meaning UKIP's leader, saying he wants to put a cap on 50,000. Where does Labour stand on this?
We're not supporting the UKIP policy. Look.
No, of course not.
We're sat in Leicester.
I'm just stating what he's saying.
We're sat in Leicester, in a Gurdwara in Leicester. This Gurdwara used to be a church. Leicester has changed over the last 40 years. In fact, you know, we've just sort of celebrated last year or so the 40 years when many Sikhs and Hindus and others came from Uganda to Leicester. This is a city where diversity is our strength. It's where immigrants have made this city their home and have contributed and made Leicester the great city it is today. So you are right, immigration can have a positive role to play. But I think everybody accepts there has to be some management of immigration. And everybody accepts that if people want to come to Britain to work and be part of society, as those who came from East Africa did to Leicester 40 years ago, that's a good thing. What people don't accept is people just coming to Britain just when they want to claim benefits. So Labour's talking about restricting some of the access to those who have just come to Britain to claim benefits. But I think generally immigration is a positive force for cities like Leicester, and in a modern economy, you know, people should be able to move across country borders to offer skills to the economy where they're moving to.
So what measures would you actually put in place then?
Well, we're going to say that people can't come and claim benefits. That's one of the measures we'll put in place straight away, because a lot of people, particularly and those who come from within the European Union, we're going to put in some new restrictions on the benefits they can claim after a certain time periods, because that hasn't been there at the moment, and that is a mistake that was made, and I'll be honest, it was the Labour government's mistake. That was a mistake. We didn't put that requirement in place when some of these Eastern European countries joined the European Union.
What else would you say? Because I mean, you look at across the border in France, there's people coming on the lorries, you know, all sorts of things. Well, hundreds of thousands of people waiting to get into Britain, right?
Well, you need strong border force, and that's one of the things we would do. And the Tories said they were going to do that, but they never did. So no, people need to be checked properly at the borders. But I think everyone accepts immigration needs to be controlled, but we're not going to go down this sort of UKIP line of, you know, castigating people who come here to make a contribution.
John, I remember way back in the 60s, immigration was an issue then. 50 years on, immigration is still an issue. And I'm sure that will be an issue in the next elections to come. What would any government would do? I know you're putting caps on or trying to control it, but people say that before the election, but they never actually deliver that. And people are up in arms because they say there are not enough jobs for us, you're getting more people in, right? You really need a fundamental change. You really need something for the border agencies to control, right? No government has delivered that. I'm not going back to the UKIP side, 50,000 cap, but you really need a realistic policy on immigration.
Well, you need to manage immigration and control it, but I don't accept this argument that if you allow people to move to your country to contribute to the economy, that is taking away jobs of people who already live here. If you look at Leicester, the same in Birmingham, look at the number of businesses which are thriving and part of the economy of this city, as will be the part of the economy in Birmingham, because of people who came to this country from East Africa 40 years ago. no one can tell me that they have not created jobs and created wealth and contributed to the economy of the United Kingdom. So I don't buy this kind of UKIP argument that if people come here from another country, they're taking away the job of somebody who already lives here. Often people who come here to start a business, create wealth and create jobs, and I celebrate that.
Now, coming back to this party politics, it is not a two-party issue anymore.
Yeah.
Well, not even a three-party issue anymore. And you've seen on the leaders' debate, there's 7 parties.
Yeah.
I'm sure there will be other little parties which is not coming on the fringes of the extreme parties, the independent parties, and all sorts of things which are not going to do any good. In the event of, on 7th of May, you wake up at the 8th of May that you are not an outright winner, right? You are then going to be asking, or other people are saying, look, either we leave a Cameron in there as a minority government, if he wins enough, or he's going to change things. I mean, last time he wanted to get rid of 50 MPs, bring it down to 600, change the constituencies. He wants to do all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
So what would be, I know it's hard to predict or hard to look into the crystal ball.
Yeah.
What would be then your thoughts?
Well, I think you hit the nail there. It's hard to look into the crystal ball. I'll be hoping that I myself am re-elected. If I don't get re-elected in Leicester South, I won't be worrying about your question. I'll be asking myself why Indrajit Goodnani's not got me re-elected.
Yeah.
But look, we are fighting to form a Labour government, and when it comes down to it, you're right to say there's lots of different parties on the scene now, like UKIP and SNP. When it comes down to it, it'll either be a Labour government or a Conservative government. It'll either be David Cameron as Prime Minister or Ed Miliband as Prime Minister. If it's David Cameron, it's more cuts, it's public services decimated, the NHS cut back, probably VAT going up. If it's Ed Miliband, it's a tax cut, it's investment in the NHS, and it's getting the economy working for working people. That's the big choice at this election.
John, thank you very much for your time, and good luck, and I'm sure we will see you again. So this was Jon Ashworth, candidate for Leicester South, and we will be talking to another candidate soon. Thanks for watching, and make sure you vote. Whoever you vote, that's irrelevant. You must go and vote. You make that change. Thank you very much for watching. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.